In a laboratory in Palo Alto, 2 mice lie side by side. One is old. Its fur is thin, its heart enlarged and labouring, its muscles slow to heal. The other is young. A surgeon has joined them at the flank, opened a channel between their bodies, and stitched their 2 circulatory systems into one. For 5 weeks they share a single supply of blood. And in those 5 weeks, something happens to the old mouse that is not supposed to be possible. Its overworked heart begins to shrink back toward a healthy size. Its muscle starts repairing itself the way young muscle does. Its aging, measured tissue by tissue, partially reverses. The old mouse got younger. That part is not in dispute. What is in dispute is whether you can buy the same thing for yourself, and how many people have already tried. The idea that blood carries youth is older than medicine. The Romans believed it literally. Pliny and Celsus both recorded spectators rushing into the arena to drink the blood of dying gladiators, convinced a young man's vitality passed into whoever swallowed it. The conviction is ancient and nearly universal, that life is a substance, that it moves in the blood, and that if you could take enough of it from the young, you could hold off your own ending. We filed all of that under superstition, under folklore, under vampire, and then, quietly, science took the folklore seriously. In 1864, a French zoologist named Bert did something that sounds like it belongs in a horror novel. He surgically joined 2 living animals so that they shared one bloodstream. He called it parabiosis, living beside. His purpose was to find out whether blood alone could carry biological signals from one body into another. It could. The technique won him attention, and then it fell almost entirely out of use for nearly a century. It resurfaced in the 1950s at Cornell, where a gerontologist named Clive McKay asked a question no one had dared to test directly. He joined old rats to young rats, wanting to know whether a young animal carried something in its blood that could rejuvenate the old. The results were crude, but they hinted at something. The old rats joined to the young seemed to last a little longer, and their bones, examined afterward, looked younger than they should have, and then the research went quiet again. For 50 more years, almost no one touched it. This is the pattern that runs underneath the entire story. A finding that should have detonated across a field instead goes dormant. Not suppressed, not hidden in any vault, simply set down and left, too strange to pursue, too unsettling to fund, waiting in the literature for someone to pick it up again. Someone finally did. In 2005, a team at Stanford led by Thomas Rando and Irina Conboy revived parabiosis and pointed it straight at aging. They published in Nature. Old mice joined to young mice for as little as 4 to 5 weeks showed measurable recovery in muscle, in liver, in the heart. The aging tissue was not merely slowed, it was partially restored by nothing more than exposure to young blood. Within a few years, a second Stanford group, Saul Villeda working with the neuroscientist Tony Wiscore, extended the finding to the organ everyone most fears losing. Young plasma, they showed, improved the brains of old mice. More new neurons, less inflammation, sharper memory. The stated reason for all of this was disease, Alzheimer's, muscle wasting, the failures of a body running down. That was the reason on the grant applications, and it was sincere. But there was a second audience reading these papers, and their interest was not academic. In 2016, the billionaire investor Peter Thiel mentioned in an interview that he was interested in parabiosis stuff, and reporting confirmed one of his companies had taken an active interest in young blood research. Thiel had spent years and millions chasing longevity, and this was the one that excited him most. The closest thing, he said, that science had found to a fountain of youth. When the coverage turned lurid, when the word vampire started appearing beside his name, he answered with a line that only made it stranger. "I am not a vampire," he said. He didn't need to deny it. No one had accused him of a crime. They had accused him of an appetite. By then the appetite had a storefront. A Stanford Medical School graduate named Jesse Karmazin, who, it should be noted, was never licensed to practice medicine, founded a company called Ambrosia. The pitch was simple. For $8,000 you could receive a litre of blood plasma drawn from a donor between 16 and 25 years old. Karmazin dressed it as a clinical trial, but it had a detail no ordinary trial has. The patients paid to be in it. In roughly a year, about 600 people handed over $8,000 each for young blood in their veins. Karmazin said the results were really positive. He never published them. And then there is the man who turned himself into the experiment. Brian Johnson made $800 million selling a payments company to PayPal, and he now spends around $2 million a year trying to reverse his own aging. In 2023, he did something that made even this crowd flinch. He arranged what he called a multi-generational plasma exchange. His 17-year-old son, Talmage, gave a litre of blood. The plasma was separated out and infused into Brian. Brian's own plasma, in turn, went into his 70-year-old father. 3 generations, 1 bloodline, 1 afternoon at a wellness clinic in Texas. The oldest human dream in the world, running through a single family, documented in real time. Here is what makes this impossible to wave away as billionaire eccentricity. The underlying science is not fringe. It is some of the most replicated work in modern aging research. The 2005 Nature paper, Conboy, Rando, Amy Wagers, Irving Weissman, has been cited thousands of times and confirmed lab after lab. According to a review of the field by the Simons Foundation, the effect has now been documented across nearly every tissue: heart, muscle, brain, liver, kidney, bone. This is not one strange result. It is one of the standard model systems in the entire study of mammalian aging. The old mouse, exposed to young circulation, reliably shows better tissue repair, healthier mitochondria, fewer markers of cellular age. You can reproduce it. People do, constantly. The search then narrowed to one question. What in the young blood is actually doing this? In 2013 and 2014, Amy Wagers, by then at Harvard, published work in Science identifying a protein called GDF11, and for a moment the headlines announced the youth molecule found. Companies formed around it. Then other researchers, most prominently a Novartis team led by David Glass, ran the experiments again and found close to the opposite. GDF11, they argued, actually rises with age and may impair muscle rather than heal it. The youth molecule became a scientific brawl that still isn't fully settled. That messiness matters because it is the honest picture. And it is exactly why, in February 2019, the Food and Drug Administration did something unusual. It issued a public warning specifically about young donor plasma sold for aging. Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, with the agency's biologics director Peter Marks, stated plainly that there was no proven benefit for the conditions these clinics advertised. Not dementia, not Parkinson's, not Alzheimer's, and that the infusions carried real risks, from allergic reactions to cardiovascular harm. Their word for it was blunt. Patients, they said, were being preyed upon by unscrupulous actors. Within hours, Ambrosia posted a notice that it had ceased treatments. Now the fair counter-argument, the one I sat with longest. The mouse science is real. It is robust, replicated, and aimed at the single most universal problem a human body faces. If exposure to young blood reliably rejuvenates an aging mouse across nearly every tissue, why is it unreasonable, greedy, maybe, but unreasonable, for someone with the means to try it in themselves? Every drug in history began in an animal. Someone always has to be first. I understand that argument. What I can't get past is what happened when humans actually tried. Ambrosia never published its data. 600 people, $8,000 each, and nothing the public ever saw. And Brian Johnson, the most measured human being alive, a man tracking his own biology with 30 doctors and a home laboratory, ran 6 separate young plasma exchanges, including the one with his son's blood, and then reported the result himself in 3 words: no benefits detected. The most rigorously monitored young blood experiment in the world produced nothing. He moved on, and then the science turned on its own premise. In 2020, Irina Conboy, one of the original 2005 authors, published work suggesting the rejuvenation might not come from adding young blood at all. It might come from diluting the old. Strip out the accumulated signals in aged blood, replace them with something neutral, and the same benefits appear. If that's right, the young donor was never the active ingredient. The thing everyone was buying may have been the wrong half of the equation entirely. I keep coming back to the size of the gap. On one side, 20 years of peer-reviewed evidence that young blood reverses aging in mice, reproduced everywhere. On the other, a row of humans who chased that exact promise with more money and more monitoring than any research subject in history, and got nothing. A functional dead end sitting directly beneath a functional miracle, separated by a single species. What unsettled me was not that rich men tried to buy youth. People have done that for 4,000 years. It was watching a genuine scientific finding, a real, measured, published reversal of aging, get pulled out of the laboratory and sold to frightened people before anyone understood what it meant, or whether it even crossed into our biology. The mouse got younger, the men wrote checks, and the actual knowledge stayed exactly where it started. In a cage, unfinished. Step back, and the pattern comes into focus, and it is not a secret meeting or a hidden order. It is simpler and harder to escape than that. It is money finding an unfinished truth and selling it early. The market for life extension treatments is now estimated at roughly $25 billion. A single company, Altos Labs, launched with $3 billion in funding, backed in part by Jeff Bezos, and recruited a Nobel laureate to chase cellular reprogramming. Thiel funds foundations built to make 90 the new 50. The wealthiest people on Earth have decided aging is the last frontier worth conquering, and they have the capital to be first in line for anything that might work. And here is the part that should bother you more than the vampire headlines. The same public research that produced the mouse results is chronically underfunded. In the United States, the basic science of aging receives roughly 20 times less government money than cancer, even though aging is what drives most cancers. The finding that could in principle belong to everyone stays trapped in animal models for lack of money, while the unproven version of it gets sold litre by litre to whoever can write an $8,000 check. The cure stays locked in the lab. The mirage of the cure goes to market immediately. Both of those facts are profitable to somebody, and neither of them required anyone to plan it. Once you see that shape, you can't unsee it. The desperate get sold the story of a treatment, the rich get to be the experiment, and the knowledge that might actually change what it means to grow old sits half-finished in a journal almost no one reads. This is not distant from you. You're aging right now, on the same schedule as everyone who came before you, and at some point someone will offer you a way out for a price. When that happens, the question won't be whether the fountain of the youth is real. Parts of it, measured in mice, apparently are. The question will be whether the thing being sold to you is the finding or its shadow, whether you're being handed the science or the story of the science, dressed up and marked up and pointed at your fear. The men who could afford to find out first already did. They ran the cleanest version of the experiment money can buy, and by their own admission, standing at the very front of the line, they got exactly what everyone before them got. Older, on schedule. Go back to the 2 mice in Palo Alto. One old, one young, joined at the flank, sharing a single bloodstream. When the 5 weeks were over and the researchers measured the old one, it had partially become young again. Its heart, its muscle, its aging tissue, reversed. That happened. It is written down in nature. It has been reproduced in laboratories around the world. And in the 2 decades since, some of the richest men alive have tried to become that mouse. They screened donors and bought the plasma and infused the blood of their own children and tracked every marker in their bodies. And the transformation that came so easily to an animal in a cage never once crossed the line into a human being who was paying for it. So which of them actually got younger? Not the investor. Not the founder with his 30 doctors. Not the 600 people who paid $8,000 apiece. The only one in this entire story whose age was measured and found to have truly reversed was a mouse. One that never chose the experiment, never paid a cent, and never knew it had been made the vessel for the oldest hope human beings have. The dream is real. We have the proof. We just can't seem to reach it. And the newest science quietly suggests the young blood was never the point at all.